Hi everyone, this is Leo. Today we are going to talk about operon and with special mention about the lac operon of E. coli. An operon is functionally related genes in bacterial cells which are clustered together as a single transcriptional unit. Operon controls the transcription of genes in bacterial cells. As you can see from the figure, this shows the structural organization of operon, which consists of a set of structural genes. Here it is designated as gene A, gene B and gene C under a single promoter and an operator to which specific regulatory protein binds. A regulatory gene helps to control the transcription of structural genes of the operon. It is not considered to be the part of the operon. This regulatory gene has its own promoter and is transcribed into mRNA, which is later translated into a regulatory protein. This protein has a DNA binding domain as well as an allosteric domain to which an inducer molecule binds. This protein now binds to the operator region of the operon with its DNA binding domain. Normally, an operon functions when a RNA polymerase binds to the promoter and then moves downstream transcribing the structural genes. But when a regulatory protein binds to the operator, the RNA polymerase can no longer bind to the promoter and thus preventing the transcription of the operon. As we move on, there are two types of transcriptional control of operon. The first one is negative control, in which the regulatory protein is a repressor, thereby inhibiting transcription, and the second one is positive control, in which regulatory protein acts as an activator stimulating the transcription. Operon can either be inducible, in which the transcription is normally off state and something must happen to induce the transcription, or repressible, where the transcription is normally on and something must happen to repress the transcription. In the coming sections, we will consider several varieties of these basic control mechanisms. In this slide, you can see the negative inducible operon. In the absence of the inducer, the regulatory gene is transcribed and translated into an active regulator protein with its DNA binding domain binds to the operator of the operon. Now the RNA polymerase cannot bind to the promoter region. As you can see, the promoter region is overlapped with the operator region. So the regulator protein is hindering the binding of RNA polymerase to the promoter. In the presence of the inducer binds to the allosteric site of the regulatory protein so that there is a conformational change in the regulator protein so that it cannot bind to the operator region. Now the RNA polymerase can bind to the promoter region. It moves down the promoter and transcribe the. In this session, you can see the various basic control mechanism of the operon. The first one is negative inducible operon. As I told you earlier, in negative inducible operon, the regulator protein acts as a repressor that makes the transcription always in the off state. But in the presence of the inducer binds to the repressor, making it inactive so that the transcription becomes on state. Moving on to the negative repressible operon, you can see an inactive repressor. This inactive repressor cannot bind to the operator because something has to bind to this inactive repressor to make it active. So in the absence of inducer, the RNA polymerase always transcribe the operon. But in the presence of the inducer, the RNA polymerase cannot bind to the promoter because the inducer make the repressor in the active form, which then binds to the operator region, so that the RNA polymerase cannot bind to the promoter region. Moving on to the positive inducible operon, there is an inactive activator. So this inactive activator cannot bind to the operator region. So the transcription is in the off state because this activator must be present in order to make the transcription active. In the presence of the inducer, this makes the inactive activator into its active state that binds to the operator region, that enhances the transcription. So it is actually inducing the operon. Moving on to the positive repressible operon, you can see an active activator. So it can bind to the operator region so that it always keep the transcription of the operon in the on state. But in the presence of the inducer makes the activator in its inactive state, so it can no longer bind to the operator, so that the transcription cannot happen. So moving on to the next section, we will see how the lactose is metabolized in a bacterial cell. For that, a bacterial cell needs three major enzymes. First one is permease, which actively transports lactose from outside the cell to inside the cell. And the second enzyme is beta-galactosidase, which breaks the lactose molecule into galactose and glucose. It can also convert lactose into its related compound allolactose, that then converted into galactose and glucose. The third enzyme is transacetylase, but the role of the transacetylase in the lac operon is not clearly understood. So this is the overall view how a lactose is metabolized by a bacterial cell. We will now see how the lac operon regulates the lactose metabolism. Lac operon is the first operon to be described by two scientists, Francis Jacob and Jacques Monod, to which they received the Nobel Prize. Lac operon is an example of negative inducible operon. We will now see how the lac operon is organized. You can find a lac-I gene which encodes the active regulator protein. The lac-I gene has its own promoter known as PI. Then you can find lac-P region, which is nothing but the promoter of lac operon. Lac-O region, which is the operator region, and three structural genes, lac-C, lac-Y, lac-A. Lac-Z encodes beta-galactosidase enzyme, which converts lactose into glucose and galactose. Lac-Y gene encodes permease enzyme, which increases the permeability of lactose. And finally, lac-A gene, which encodes transacetylase enzyme. As I told you earlier, lac operon is an negative inducible operon. So here an active regulator protein acts as a repressor molecule that controls the operon, and a certain molecule must present in order to induce this operon. This molecule is known as an inducer molecule. In the case of lac operon, it is allolactose. So in the absence of allolactose, the regulator protein binds to the operator region and inhibits the transcription. But in the presence of allolactose, it binds to the regulator protein and make the regulator protein in its inactive state. Now the regulator protein cannot bind to the operator region and the structural genes are transcribed by RNA polymerase. Later it is translated into beta-galactosidase, permease and trans-acetylase enzymes respectively. But there might be a doubt about the presence of lactose molecule before its metabolizing enzymes come into picture. That is, about the presence of lactose before beta-galactosidase and permease enzymes are synthesized. The repression never completely shut down the transcription of the lac operon. Even with active repressor bound to the operator, there is a low level of transcription known as basal transcription level. But how Jacob and Monod elucidated the structure of lac operon? The structure and function of lac operon is elucidated by analyzing various mutations that affected lactose metabolism. For that, they created partial diploid strains of E. coli bacteria. The cells of these strains possessed two different DNA molecules, a full bacterial chromosome and a piece of DNA that is created by conjugation between two bacteria. Thus, there are four types of mutation. Mutation in the structural gene, mutation in the regulator gene, mutation in the operator region, and mutation in the promoter region. The mutation in the structural gene is designated as LAC-Z-, LAC-Y-, and LAC-A-. In this case, there are no enzymes produced from this mutation. Moving on to the regulator gene mutation, the LAC-I+ gene is trans-acting dominant gene. The repressor produced by LAC-I+ can bind to both operators and repress transcription in the absence of lactose. There are two types of LAC-I mutation. One is LAC-I- mutation. In this figure, you can find a mutant repressor and an active repressor. The mutant repressor is produced by LAC-I- gene. But the active repressor, since LAC-I gene is a trans-acting, it can bind to both LAC-O+ region of the DNA molecules. But in the presence of lactose, the lactose inactivates the repressor and functional beta-galactosidase enzyme is produced from the LAC. The next LAC-I gene mutation is LAC-IS. This LAC-IS gene produces a super repressor. It is having a normal DNA binding domain but a mutated allosteric domain to which the inducer molecule cannot bind. Here, this repressor is known as super repressor. As I told you earlier, LAC-I gene is trans-dominant. The super repressor binds both operators and prevents transcription in the presence and absence of lactose in the case of LAC-IS mutation. Next, we are moving on to the mutations in the operator region. It is designated as LAC-OC mutation. In this case, LAC-OC mutation is constitutive. That is, LAC proteins are produced all the time. Also, LAC-O gene is cis-acting. That means it affects only genes on the same DNA molecule. In this figure, you can find the partial diploid state like I plus, like O plus, like Z minus, slash, like I plus, like OZ, like Z plus. Since like O is mutated in the second DNA molecule, the active repressor cannot bind to the second DNA molecule. So in the absence of lactose, even though the active repressor binds to the first DNA molecule, there is the production of beta galactosidase enzyme from the second DNA molecule. In the absence of lactose, the active repressor cannot bind either of the LAC-O plus or LAC-OZ. Thus, beta galactosidase is produced even in the presence of E. coli and many other bacteria metabolize glucose preferentially in the presence of lactose and other sugars. They do so because glucose requires less energy to get metabolized than do other sugars. When glucose is available in the medium, genes that participate in the metabolism of other sugars are repressed. This is known as catabolized repression. This regulation is in addition to the negative control brought about by the repressor binding at the operator site of lac operon when lactose is absent. A positive control is accomplished through the binding of catabolite activator protein or CAP protein within or slightly upstream of the promoter of lac genes. CAP protein normally binds to the DNA with the aid of another molecule known as CAM or cyclic adenosine monophosphate. There is an enzyme called adenylate cyclase that converts ATP into cyclic adenosine monophosphate or CAM. In the presence of high glucose, this adenylate cyclase is inhibited by the glucose molecule. But in the absence of glucose, this adenylate cyclase converts ATP into cyclic AMP. When the glucose is low, levels of cyclic AMP are high that readily binds with CAP protein, and the CAM complex binds with the DNA, increasing the efficiency of polymerase binding. The results are high rates of transcription of the lac operon. When glucose is high, levels of cyclic AMP are low, and cyclic AMP is less likely to bind to CAP protein. Thus, RNA polymerase cannot bind to DNA as efficiently, so the transcription of the lac operon is at low rate in the case of high glucose level. This kind of repression is not. Moving on to the next session, we will see how glucose molecule is preferentially transported even in the presence of other sugar molecules. The glucose molecule is transported inside a bacterial cell via PEP dependent phosphotransferase system. In the PEP dependent phosphorylase system, there are two kinds of phosphorylase proteins involved. One is general phosphorylase protein. Here they are E1 and HPR proteins, and molecule specific phosphorylase protein. In this case they are E2 protein, glucose specific E2 proteins. During glucose transport, PEP transfer its phosphate group to E1. Later it transfer its phosphate group to HPR protein. The HPR transfer its phosphate group to the trimeric E2 glucose specific phosphorylase protein. HPR transfer its phosphor group first to the E2A and E2B. Later, E2B transfer its phosphate group to the glucose molecule that is being transported via E2C, and the glucose molecule become glucose 6-phosphate. Moving on to the next session, we will see how actually glucose repress the lac operon. As I told you earlier, in order to transport the glucose, a bacterial cell depends on phosphorylase system. One of the components of the phosphorylase system is glucose specific E2 protein. This glucose specific E2 protein, especially its E2A domain, in its phosphorylated state enhances the activity of another enzyme, adenylate cyclase, that converts ATP into cyclic AMP. The cyclic AMP later combines with cap protein that then binds to the promoter region of the lac operon, enhancing the transcription rate of structural genes. But when the E2A protein transfers its phosphate group to E2B, that then transfer its phosphate group to glucose molecule that is being transported inside the cell, the amount of unphosphorylated E2A increases inside the cell. Increased unphosphorylated E2A inhibits LAC-Y. As you know that LAC-Y is nothing but the permease enzyme that involved in the lactose transport. If permease enzyme is inhibited by E2A, the lactose molecule cannot be transported inside the cell, so that there is no formation of allolactose, which is the inducer of lac operon. Thus, the transport of glucose inside the cell repress the lac operon. It is known as catabolite repression of the lac operon. By the end of this session, I hope you have understood about the operon concept and the lac operon in E. coli. With this, I am winding up this session. Thank you.